I hope you can hear me. If you can hear me clearly, please just type yes in the chat room so that I am sure that you are here with me. We promised to start at 10 a.m. and it's exactly 10, so it's time for us to kick off. My name is Dr. Olawale Anifowoshe, and of course, I'm here to share just a few remarks to welcome you to this webinar session brought to you by the Enterprise Development Center of the Pan Atlantic University and proudly supported by Old Mutual. So I think I'm in place or in the right position to say thank you ahead of time to Old Mutual for supporting this. The conversation this morning is about risk and managing risk in our businesses. You would agree with me that in times of crisis, companies and especially small businesses need to carefully monitor their expenses and of course cost in their businesses, which could potentially be caused by risky actions. Risk in itself is inherent in every business, and small businesses are more exposed to a lot because of the scarce resources that small businesses have. So what are some of these risks and what are the mitigants which we can put in place that can help us safely navigate ourselves out of positions that could potentially harm us and our businesses? There's quite a lot happening in the environment right now. And post the pandemic, there's still quite a number of things that will be coming towards us. And I'm sure many of us are aware that there's a looming recession that is awaiting us. And it's most likely going to be global and none like we've seen before. But being able to understand how to navigate yourself puts you in a better position than most people. So I want to welcome you to this session that would hopefully help you to understand some of those things that you need to put in place to help you stay afloat and stay abreast of your business. Okay, without taking too much time, I'm going to hand over to the moderator for today, Mrs. Neka Okekyaru, who will then introduce the rest of the panelists and take over the conversation. Once again, I welcome you and I implore you to enjoy the session. Neka.
All right, thank you very much, Wale, for that introduction. And welcome to our listeners, and thank you very much for tuning in. So like Wale spoke about, this webinar is on managing risk in your business. And we all know that that's very important, primarily for us as entrepreneurs because of ensuring business continuity. And for us to ensure business continuity, we need to have emergency scenarios that are essential. We need to respond very quickly as much as possible so that we can mitigate some of the impacts of this risk, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic. And with us to do justice to this topic, we have an esteemed panel. Please join me as I welcome Helen Amore, who is a serial entrepreneur, Adeboyega Adebajo, who is an investment banker and a strategist, Kayode Odetola and Makonjola Tubi, who are risk experts. Welcome, my esteemed panelists. Okay, so I've just given their names, but I'll just let them open their mics for a few seconds to give us a brief about their background and what they'll be bringing to this conversation. Starting with the only lady on the panel, Helen Amore.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Helen Amore. I am founder of Auntie Helen Foods, which is an SME, and I'm also faculty at EDC. I sit on boards of some corporate organizations, including one which is interested in risk management, and I also lecture at the Pan Atlantic University School of Media and Communication. I have investments in a couple of small businesses, and I'm happy to be here to share some of my own experiences. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll move over now to Kayode Odetola.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Okay. Morning, I can hear you very well. Awesome. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well, loud and clear, Kayode.
Okay, my name is Kayode Odetola. and I work with Old Mutual Nigeria. I think it's important for me to state that in the last 10 years, I have been dealing with retail customers, basically in the retail and SME retail space. Yes, the core of what I do is basically insurance, but most importantly, we know that in the process of dealing with insurance, you also have to engage and actually understand people's needs. So I'm looking forward to this session to be able to share some of that experience and also actually to be able to also touch base on real life examples and scenarios that can help SMEs actually better grow their businesses. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'll move over now to Tubi Makanjola.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be on this platform. My name is Makanjola Tubi. I also work for Old Mutual. My 13 to 15 year experience has largely been in risk management and advisory with a key focus on insurance, like Heidi had mentioned. I've cut across real SME and institutional business. And I strongly believe that as SMEs remain a critical part, a critical backbone to the economy of every nation, it's very imperative that SMEs appreciate and understand the impact unattended risk can have in their long-term objective and goals. And I'm happy to give insights on how businesses can manage this risk in the future. Thank you.
All right, pleasure to meet you, Tubi Makanjola. Adegboyega Adebajo, who's joining us from Abuja. Boyega, are you on now? Adegboyega Adebajo, is he on now? Okay, so while we wait for Adegboyega Adebajo, who is trying to dial in from Abuja, he was actually online for the audio test 10-15 minutes ago, but it appears the internet is acting up. So I'm going to start now with a general question, and this is for all three of you, Kayode, Tubi, and Helen. What are the immediate challenges facing small businesses currently as a consequence of the impact of COVID-19? So that question is actually for all three of you. And of course, you know my stance. I'm gender sensitive. I head gender at Enterprise Women Center. So of course, Helen has the first go at that question. Helen, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, I was going to say that first, good morning, everyone. First thing is you need to know your risks. And for you to know your risks in this current system, you have to know your business very well. So my first challenge to most business owners is you need to take another look at your business model. What kind of business am I running? What are the variables driving my business? It's only when you have a clear picture of that you can define your risks, because there are risks along different aspects of the business. First, you need to know that in this space now, the greatest risk we are all dealing with is the health risk. We are all concerned with the pandemic. And when you look at the health risk, it has to do with yourself. First, you as the SME, then secondly, your staff. And then you have to look at your stakeholders, your customers, your suppliers, the regulators you engage with, everybody you have to interact with. So you need to know those risks and find a way of managing them. Thank God that extensive guidelines have been released by both the NCDC and various state governments as we unlock the lockdown. Secondly, you also need to know what are your business risks. What are your business risks? Your business risks are both external and internal. The environment affects you. So for instance, you are manufacturing, you're a small scale manufacturer. You need to understand, one, how are my suppliers doing? How does this affect them? What should I be doing with them? How am I going to manage my suppliers? Are they going to be open? If I don't get from supplier A, can I get from supplier B? So we need to first identify the risks. And for you to identify the risks that affect your business, you have to understand your business. For me, that's the first thing that SMEs need to look at. Risk management is with us. It stays with us every time. We have constantly managing risks because we live in an environment that is volatile. So risks are always with us. So as a business owner, you need to know your business very well. If you don't know your business very well, you cannot know the risks. You can't even identify those risks. So my first challenge to all of us who are here is, let's go back and sit down and look at our business properly. What's our strategy? What's the business model? How are we managing the business? How are we going to manage the risks that will come as a result of health, as a result of the environment? And then the other major risk that we're going to face now is falling demands. As just like Dr. Wale said, we're about to face a major global recession. How am I going to manage the falling demands? How am I going to manage access to finance? Do I have a plan for managing my finances? Do I even understand the risks I face? If I have loans, do I understand the risks that I'm facing when I default? Do I understand the risk I'm facing when I don't have cash to pay, when the demand is low? We need to break it down into smaller pieces. The risks are enormous, they are numerous. But what you need to do first is look at your business model. Look at all parts of your business, your customers, your customer management strategy, your channels, how you distribute it. Now, everybody has to go online because we can't do physical movements as generously as we used to. Okay? How are you going to manage your costs in this time that we are in? How are you going to manage all the activities you run? How are you going to manage your resources? How are you going to manage your partners? So it's a total picture. You need to understand that. So my first challenge is, let's sit back, look at our business model so that we can identify all our risks and know how to manage.
Thank you so much. Now, we forgot to mention this at the beginning. For all those that are listening, and if you're an entrepreneur, a would-be entrepreneur, I will advise that you get your notebooks and your pen, because this is a free session that you're getting. You need to take all these tips down. You need to write everything as they're throwing it out. So Helen, thank you very much. And I hear you loud and clear talking about the need to understand. For a lot of entrepreneurs, they just jump into business and they actually haven't thought through on their strategy. A lot of them don't even understand anything about business modeling. And with this period that we've been faced to be locked down at home, what I found myself telling a lot of entrepreneurs is that use this period not as a period to just whine, but as a retreating period for a strategy retreat. So you can sit down and actually look at your business from a strategic perspective rather than all the activities you've been running from an operational perspective. So thank you very much for sharing that. So it's the same question. Like I said, it's a general question. So I would like Toby to answer from his own perspective as somebody working in the insurance industry who has had to serve numerous entrepreneurs. For you, what do you see as the main challenges that are facing entrepreneurs as a consequence of the impact of COVID-19? Toby.
All right, thank you once again. I mean, Helen has literally touched on all the areas, but what is very imperative for our listeners to grasp and come to terms with is even understanding, for starters, what a risk is. Appreciating what a risk is then gives you a clearer insight in how you can then be proactive into mitigating or controlling those risks in the future. And in simple terms, I like to liken a risk as an uncertainty. So some scholars would define risk or a risk as a condition with the possibility of having an adverse deviation from your set objectives. And I strongly believe that every SME business or every business owner here starts out or sets out to go into business to be profitable, to flourish and to blossom into bigger enterprises, into the Dangotes that we have today, the Bill Gates and of Microsoft and the likes. But having that understanding first of what a risk is in its simplest form, which is what I've just tried to explain, that whatever it is that is going to deviate you from being a profitable venture should be identified as a risk. Even things as minimal as, your cost expense, your expense base. You need to then itemize it, like Helen said. You need to look at your business model end to end, from start to finish, and then appreciate, what are the possibilities that, if this doesn't pan out, what's the impact is going to have on me? What's the impact is going to have on my revenues? What's the impact is going to have on my customer base? And the moment business owners appreciate this and are proactive enough to have a risk management plan in place that is then reviewed per time. We've talked about what COVID-19 is having, in our world today, and a very clear risk, that business owners have probably not embraced. While some have jumped at the opportunities, the risk of innovation. At times like this, business owners have to be very innovative. They have to be very creative. How am I going to get my service? How am I going to get my product across to people without physically being there? Am I able to offer this service online? Am I able to offer this solution through a different channel that will not expose or put my customers at risk of contacting the COVID-19 plague or whatever other elemental plague that is going around our circles? These are genuine questions that every business owner, regardless of whatever period or whatever stage they're in, are meant to begin to ask themselves. Because the moment you begin to ask these questions, then you begin to then provide the answers, or begin to look for the answers that will then address the issues and build businesses forward. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that, Tubi. And I'll move over now to Kayode. Kayode, from your own perspective, you're both in the insurance space. What are the immediate challenges that are facing entrepreneurs as a result of the consequence and impact of COVID-19?
Thank you very much, Neka. And I believe again that Tubi and Helen have given very insightful contributions to the question. But let me just backtrack a bit just to help us understand the magnitude of what we're dealing with. Because the question that you actually asked is the question that touches on the, will I call it the epicenter of the Nigerian business as a whole. So to think about the fact that your basic SMEs contribute about 48% of our GDP, and they employ up to 84% of the workforce, and both businesses actually sit in that space. Says a lot about the impact, or not of those kind of situations. So what are these impacts? I know Helen had spoken about individual risk and the need to have the right business models, and I think we built up on that to say, yes, you must understand the impact of the revenue on your customer base, and also you must have a risk management plan in place, and we use the examples of COVID-19. But if I take that slightly further, it's to say,
Oh dear, it appears we're losing you, Kayode. Hello, Kayode. Kayode, can you hear me? Okay, so while we're waiting for Kayode to get back, Adegboyega Adebajo signed in a while ago while Helen was speaking. So it's my pleasure to welcome Adegboyega Adebajo. He's here with us. So Boyega, please can you just do a brief intro of your background and what you're bringing to this conversation? And while you're doing that, to also reflect, the question I'd ask everybody, what are the immediate challenges of facing entrepreneurs as a consequence of the impact of COVID-19?
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Neka.
Your voice is dragging. Okay. You sound like a robot.
Okay, so well, what am I bringing here? It's a bit of a mixed years. I guess I'm not going to be able to do much about that, but I hope it gets better as time goes on. I might just after I finish speaking, reconnect and see what happens then. So it's experience coming from banking, particularly large corporates, and then a segment on the SMEs, and coming with a view of how banks look at SMEs as a credit risk, and taking that framework in the time over the past 7 years, working with a lot of SMEs, realizing and gaining an insight into challenges from their own perspective. And these challenges go from setting up, trying to grow, trying to access supplies, and trying to access markets. And all these bring about their risks in particular. You know, yes, I have been listening to, and it's interesting to hear Toby speak about risk from an insurance person's perspective. I try to describe risk in everyday language as something, an event that will stop you from meeting your objective. Okay, and it's an event, but it hasn't.
Boyega. Okay. We've lost Boyega. Khaled, are you back?
Yes, I'm back. The internet seems to be fluctuating. But I think
know.
He touched on a very good
challenge.
Yes, he started up a very good point. I'm referring to being on the issue of credit risk. And you know, and I think that's really at the end of the day, that's really the bottom line to say, will your business survive? And the point I was trying to make earlier on was to say, when you then look at the fact that the Nigerian context shows that most businesses are typically SMEs, it means that if you don't have the right framework, a classic example of what is happening with COVID-19 is what we would continue to face. So what are the direct impacts? The first is you would see declining revenues, you know, an inability to actually provide the kind of goods and services, and I think someone touched on that earlier on, to reach those who need them. Number two is you would also see a very low capacity to absorb the shocks. So what are the shocks that we see? Now is the fact that prices are going down. Obviously, prices are going higher. The oil issues also coming to sort of distort things here and there. And it then leads to the fact that SMEs need to take certain decisions. Can I continue to keep the staff that I have? That brings up the issue of loss of job. You know, how best can we actually manage our revenues or expenses in a way that does not infringe entirely on the existence of that business? So when you look at it in its entirety, like Beriga has said, every facet of the business has certain risks that must be identified and must be planned for. And I think that as we go ahead, we'll be able to also share, you know, more in that light of ensuring that you're able to better plan for and cope with this risk.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. Listening to all of you talking, you've talked about some of the revenue dip. There's been mention of maybe you know, staff either resizing, downsizing, but whatever, looking at the staff, and I'm hearing cost and all that. So my next question now, because for me, we always just say risk, 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 but we're talking about entrepreneurship, we're talking about business. So I'm now wondering, how can businesses ensure continuity? So now I'm talking about business continuity. It's very, very important. For a lot of people, it's a phrase that they always attribute to the large corporates. Oh, they have a business continuity plan. It's something that they're working on. They're constantly looking at it. But with what is happening now, with everything that you're saying, with everything that we've seen, we look at the US alone, you're looking at almost 30 million people filing for unemployment benefits. All over the world, there's been all sorts of things that has caused uncertainty and stress. And uncertainty and stress are two critical things you do not need when you're talking about running a business. So now this is another general question. how can businesses ensure continuity in light of everything that is happening and more? You just mentioned now, Coyote, about the oil price. We're literally begging them to take it. And the reason is it's a simple demand and supply reason. People all over the world, factories they're not working, they're not manufacturing anything, planes are not flying. So because of that, there really is no demand for the oil, which is the single largest contributor to Nigeria. So how can SMEs ensure business continuity in light of everything that is happening? So I want you to just each take 2-3 minutes from your own various perspectives in looking at that question. So this is a question around COVID continuity, 2 C's, okay?
Okay.
Most people that are listening are entrepreneurs, and they're scared, they're anxious, they're worried. I've spent so long, the last couple of weeks, just assuring people and going through their business with them and what the things that they can do. So this is a question for all 4 of you. How can we ensure continuity? I need you to spend 2-3 minutes looking at that question from various angles. So I'll start with you, Boyega. You're back on now. I think Boyega.
Yeah. Let me just quickly. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Thank you, Naked. Let me just quickly say that any business is value solutions you give to your customers. Okay. So you've got customers on one side you deliver value to, and on the other side you've got key stakeholders that provide you with the inputs you require to create value. If your business must continue, regardless of what the context or the environment is all about, then you've got to lock in relationships. And I tell people, you don't start building up a customer base or there is a crisis. So a crisis situation gives you a fantastic opportunity to gain new customers. A lot of people need help right now. And where you are the person to provide the solution, people may forget you when you help them in the good times, but they hardly, if ever, forget you when you help them in the bad times. With regards to your suppliers that provide you with the input for creating value, they also want to make sales. They are businesses themselves. And you need to sit with suppliers and create channels that can go over crisis periods. And that way you can ensure, even if it's not the full, robust, entire package of your business that continues to exist in a crisis, at least an element that barely serves your customers and sustains your relationship with them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And I'll move over to 2B.
Did I couldn't hear anything. I hope my audio wasn't lost as I was speaking.
No, it was. We heard you. Right. We heard you. So we're moving over to 2B and then Coyote and then lastly Helen. Okay, so the question is around continuity of business.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay.
So in planning,
fantastic.
In planning for continuity of business, still along the line of risk management plans, it would be advisable for all business owners to engage in what I'd like to describe or I like term scenario planning. The COVID-19 pandemic is a classic example of the importance of scenario planning. So come up with varying scenarios. Strategists talk about a V-shaped scenario, a U-shaped scenario, L-shaped, where simulate scenarios that, with this pandemic, how badly can my business, fall or decline? What's the response time? Is it going to be as bad as the world paints it based on the services I offer? And then begin to then simulate responses. Like Bega also mentioned, it would also be an opportunity to consider diversification. Are you involved in certain lines of services and goods that you can probably re-explore and diversify from? Are you able to offer or take that service in a different manner or in a different form, which ties back to what I had mentioned earlier on around innovation? Are you looking for innovative ways of getting your service across, to your customers? I mean, it's amazing what COVID-19, in spite of the casualties and challenges it has brought, it's amazing how much innovation has come through from various quarters. I mean, schools are now adopting online methodologies to reach out to children. I was particularly even shocked, with where I stay. I stay in Magodo, and I just discovered that the very popular market in Mile 12 are now offering online services somewhat. So you call, you make your order, and then they come into that locality where you can pick up those orders. Who would have ever thought that, oh, you can actually have Mile 12 come to your doorstep, if you understand what I'm trying to say. And then for your business operations, like I had mentioned, and this is from an insurance perspective, is to then begin to itemize which of the risks that you've been able to identify, which ones are you able to transfer using insurance, for instance. So you have employees that will probably be exposed to ailments and conditions during this period. They're obviously not working, they're probably not earning, they need to get to the hospitals. Do you have health insurance policies in place for these employees? You've probably taken a credit loan, a credit facility from a bank. Do you have the scope of cover for that loan that would probably support you in the event of a default or in the event of a job loss? Some insurance solutions prefer and offer these covers, but people are probably not just aware of how much they can leverage on insurance. So if you have an insurance protection on a facility that you're running that protects you against defaults or protects you against job loss, then at least you know that pending when this when the economy bounces back to itself, there's something that you can at least fall back on. It will probably not pay you, 100%, but in situations like this, whatever it is that you can grab would obviously be very welcome. And finally, like what you guys said, you just need to prioritize at times like this. You obviously, all your objectives and goals would obviously not happen. You then need to focus on which are the most paramount goals and objectives for you as a business owner, and then begin to look for innovative ways to continue to offer that service whilst managing the crisis. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Tubi, for that. And then Helen.
Okay, so my take on business continuity again is you need to first assess the risks before you, because these are not normal times. So before you move and find a way of continuing your business, you must think of the risks of ensuring that you stay open. So I'll give you a classic example. At the beginning of the lockdown, they said that people in food business could continue running their businesses. And so a lot of people went out. And what happened? You found people whose vehicles were arrested, and then they lost a lot of goods. Perishable goods got damaged. Some people's goods were vandalized. So in looking at business continuity, sometimes you may have to shut down one operation completely, pending when things return to normalcy, and then look for an alternative business or route to market so that you reduce the risk that you would incur as a result of trying to continue your business during the period. And that's what happened. So some of us would have to stop working until things return to normalcy, especially people who have a high incidence of contagion. Okay, so we have to stop working. The other option here is the skills and services that I have or the services I render, can they be deployed on another platform that is not going to be adversely affected by the coronavirus? Can I offer another service? So for instance, you find some people who were bottling drinks are now bottling sanitizers. Some companies who sell alcoholic beverages are now selling hand sanitizers. So if you are a teacher or a lecturer, you also have an events business or a business that requires physical contact, and it's one of those businesses that you know you cannot constantly run this period. Now is the time to do something else. So maybe I'll teach more. Maybe I'll teach my skill. Maybe I'll teach people how to do my business. Maybe I'll go online and engage my customers more. Maybe now is the time to look for other online providers who can take my products without exposing me or my staff to risk. So in terms of business continuity, again, it takes me back to where I started. What business am I running? In what various ways can it be delivered? Whether it's a product or a service. How else can I deliver that product or service apart from what I am doing now without putting myself at risk? Where am I going to get funding? Funding is very key. I know that we always sometimes say that finance is not a challenge, but for most SMEs, they live on the edge. They don't even have enough reserves for 1 week, talk less of for 1 month. And if you consider that the economy has been shut for about 6 weeks now, people need to be thinking, how am I going to finance my operation? So we have to have a finance strategy to mitigate the risk so that we can continue providing services. Demands are low, very low. So for me, to ensure business continuity, just like 2B I said earlier on, scenario planning, scenario A, can I continue operating without incurring losses? If your answer is yes, please go ahead. If I decide to continue delivering my service, at what cost am I going to deliver it? Can I recover my cost? If you cannot recover your cost, then you have to rethink. Should I suspend? Should I reduce my offering? 3, if that works for you, what other options do you have? Can I think of another way of earning money with these skills or resources that I have? Okay, so these are the practical things we have to be thinking about as business owners, because the truth is we need to earn income, we need to earn revenue. What can I do with my people? Can I keep all my staff? Should I let some people go? And then should you tell them early? How much staff inventory can you carry when you are not earning enough? Now revenues are dipping. People are hardly making as much sales as they used to make because across board, most of us are losing income. So we have to think about different scenarios and address specific issues. It's not time to make highfalutin plans. This is the time to look at your reality and say, what should I be doing to address it? So that we can come out with practical results to ensure we can continue to stay in business as the COVID-19 continues to spread and is being managed.
Okay, all right, thank you. Kayode. Now.
Very insightful feedback from Helen, and I think that contribution is very well spot on. I'll just pick a few things from what she said because she's more or less done good justice to that question. And I think for me, it's a reality check. And there is no better time than now to actually be able to sort of understand the magnitude of whether we call it scenario plannings or stress testings that need to be done to ensure that the business stays afloat. But without taking anything away, I want to go back to one of the things that VUCA mentioned, which is the need to lock in relationships. And perhaps one of the things that will keep some businesses alive today really is the fact that you have customers whom you're already servicing and whom you need to be able to understand how best to provide either the same service or an alternative service that will still keep them engaging with you as a business. Yes, whilst we understand that it will be very difficult for people to just physically shift or change tactics. So it might be easy for someone who's bottling water to probably think of doing something else on the side. But for more specialized businesses, it might have to take a more insightful deep dive to see what needs to shut down, like Helen had said, what needs to continue, and what we can sustain and by and for how long. But the business continuity plan that was mentioned, I think at the start, just basically encapsulates everything that has been said, from the need to plan the different scenarios. What is my most optimistic outlook, and how do I respond to it? If this continues at this rate in the next 6 to 12 months, where do I find my business, and what responses do I need to put in place? And most importantly, also saying, how do I keep my customers? Because those are the guys, or those are the people who ultimately would, be able to help the business not only maintain its current level of performance or productivity, but most importantly, support the business to rebound when the time comes.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will be opening the chat room. You can put your fingers or your hands up using the hands up button for questions shortly. But I have one more last question for them before I open the floor for questions from our audience all over. We've been talking a lot about risk, and that's fine. But for a lot of people, I think what gets them is uncertainty. Okay, so it's the uncertainty, and with that uncertainty comes stress. How can business owners start to think, why should, first and foremost, why is there so much uncertainty? Second, what is the implication and impact of this uncertainty? And thirdly, what advice do you have for so many entrepreneurs that have tuned in, and so many people that have tuned in around uncertainty? Because when we identify risk, we can now start to plan the mitigants to the risk. But what do we do about uncertainty? So that question is for all of you, or anyone that wants to take that up. Uncertainty.
What do you? What? It's
no, it's a curveball.
It's a funny thing. Okay, so there's no crystal. Yeah, there's no crystal ball, but you see, you can't take it away from what everybody has said. Cowdate, Helen, what we've all said. Think about risk. Risk is that event that may happen, and it may happen because of the situation in which you're in. Okay, if I drive from Lagos to Ibadan at 1 a.m. at night, the risks I face are different if I drive from Lagos to Ibadan at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, broad daylight. So once you find yourself in a particular context, ask yourself, what are the things that can stop me from getting to my objective? And that's to get to Ibadan on that road. Okay, and when you start to identify those things well enough before you travel, you may decide to prepare in case those uncertainties become certainties. And that's the only way. And then you tell yourself at that point in time, if it happens, this is what I'm going to do. Again, in risk management, you always make a choice. It's not when the event occurs, but before the identified risk occurs.
Okay. We struggle to hear you a bit on that, Greg, but thank you. So it's the identification, and what if this happens, and what are those uncertain, anybody else want to address that before I go and open the chat room and look at the questions that we have?
Okay, I'd like to speak a bit to that. You see, for some time now, especially post 9/11, there's been a term called VUCA. That is, we live in a volatile world where there are a lot of uncertainties, especially the complexities and ambiguities that comes with it. So life, just like I said at the beginning, life itself is very uncertain. There's no certainty that all of us in this room will live till the end of this evening. We don't know, but we must take plans to prepare for the unexpected. Okay, so risk management must be a core of our lives and our businesses. We must plan for what could happen. Because we don't know what can happen to disrupt our plans, we must plan for disruptions. I mean, I hear everybody saying that nobody planned for coronavirus. None of us planned for it. But if we rewind, there's been a lot of talk about different things that could upset the world order. And disease is one of them. The question is, are we prepared? Are there tools that we can use to manage it? So for business, it's even a bit clearer. As a business owner, one of the key tools that you must have is an enterprise risk management framework. How are you going to manage the various risks that come before you? You must know what's happening in your environment. You must know what's happening in your industry. You must understand your business. You must understand your operations. You must know your financial health. You must know the things that can take you out of business and how to prevent or manage them. So uncertainty is a certainty of our lives. Let me put it that way. It's something we live with. And that's why there are risk management frameworks to help us manage the effect of some of those uncertainties. So I want us to think about it more deeply, that risk management must become a core of our business. For those of us who don't have a risk management framework, now is the time to develop one, and we must constantly assess the risks that we face as business owners. Thank you, Neka.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that, Helen. Tubi and Kayode.
Yes, I would say that I think Helen has touched on a very valid point, but I also want to say, perhaps, to help us better understand that whilst risk management can be used as a tool to manage or mitigate risk, there are certain things that we do not have control over. And I think one of those things are uncertainties. You know, that there's just so many complexities. There's so many dynamics. You know, you said a lot about COVID-19. How much preparation can you make? You know, and sometimes I sit back and I just wonder, listening to a former president of the US saying things around the fact that we might have a pandemic and we need to be prepared, to a Congress or to a House that, you know, basically understands the need to prepare, in quote, for war. And despite all of those, you still aren't able to, you know, achieve the kind of results that you want. I think we need to just come to terms with the fact that uncertainties will be uncertainties. We may not be able to answer all the questions. There obviously are, there's probably a need for you to prioritize, which is where talking about what opportunities come your way and how you prioritize at this point in time. And let's not lose sight of the fact that you must also take the very hard decisions when those uncertainties come through. They are difficult. The only thing that your risk management approach will do is probably to a great extent just mitigate it, but it will not provide a foolproof response to handling the uncertainties.
Okay, thank you very much, Kayode. Tubi.
Okay, I mean, everybody has touched on very salient points around uncertainty. And like Helen put it, uncertainties are here. They are a part of our lives. And for business owners, and I'll keep putting an emphasis on, regardless of the fact or regardless of the size or operations of every business owner, the moment you're able to answer the question, that in this business or venture that I'm embarking on, are there more than one or two possibilities? There is your answer. That means there's a risk. So if it's not a straight-jacketed response to say, oh, it's only one way or one route I'm going, as long as there's a possibility of something going wrong or something not happening or something not aligning to plan, that's an uncertainty. And the moment you come to terms with that, then you know you need to plan for that uncertainty. I liked the example Bega was also trying to illustrate, and I also want to just throw that line to say, you wake up in the morning and, oh, you have to drive down to the island, you're looking at the traffic situation, but you need to get to the island at a specific time. There's an uncertainty that if you leave at a particular time or the plan or the time that you desire or the time that you desire to set out, you may not meet that appointment or meet that business engagement. You then begin to plan. So how best do I manage this situation? Do I avoid this traffic situation entirely, which would mean I'll probably have to leave home an hour or two earlier? Or do I just decide to just deal with it and I'll just get into the traffic, or I don't want to drive or get into this traffic? So business owners have to be that practical. And it still goes back to that foundation that we used to start this conversation. Business owners must understand their operations thoroughly, end to end. Once you have that understanding, you then begin to understand the uncertainties and risks that come with your business and then begin to address them.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So now I'm going to open the chat room. We're going to the chat room to take questions. So there's one from Ola Dapo. Ola. He says, talking about business models, what's the business model and how can you develop one? Okay, so that's the first one. Then Abayomi Olomu says, good morning. Currently, the challenges has been SME credit rating, government not localizing contents. Now, what can small businesses do to scale impending challenges, especially around credit risk and meeting up with demand and supplies? That question is a bit not clear. And then from Oladapola, again, how can MSME businesses thrive through amidst the changes in the macroeconomics indices? Okay, so that question will be for any one of you. We have some hands up. So after that, we'll now take their hands and they can take, but maybe you should just take those questions I asked now from the chat room. Any one of you can take the questions. So there was one, the first one is on business model.
Can I answer the one on
started
business
that
model?
Conversation. I was coming to you because you actually in your opening remarks mentioned business models. So you take the question on business model.
Okay, so, okay, great. Okay, quickly. A business model is simply a statement that shows how you as a business will create value. How will you deliver your service or product? How will you deliver it to your customers? And then how will you also capture value? So if you're running a business, you have to understand the entire dynamics of what it takes to deliver the product or service. And this includes your supply chain, your customers, how you're going to deliver it, who are your other stakeholders, who are the people that will help you ensure you deliver it, how should you structure your costs so that you can deliver your business profitably. A business model is a tool that helps you understand your business and structure it in a way that will help you deliver the business profitably. What happens with most of us SMEs is that we have a business, we are running it, but we're not patient enough to dimension different aspects of the business model. So that if you understand everything you need to do and who is going to be affected and who affects you, you'll be able to think more creatively so that you can deliver your product or service at a profitable rate. But what happens with most of us is we don't think through the process carefully. So I want to cook food. I just start cooking. I don't know that there are times of the week when I should buy. I don't know that there are places where I should buy. I don't know that there are some people that will not buy the kind of food I will cook. But I just want to cook because they say that with food business, you can never go wrong. Another good example, now they say there's agriculture is the next big thing in Nigeria. And then everybody wants to go into agriculture, not knowing the dynamics of what it takes to plant or what it takes to grow any animal of any sort, not knowing whether you should be growing or you should be selling or you should be processing or who you need to talk to or what regulations you need to abide with or what it even costs to deliver the service. So a business model simply means that you should know the entirety of your business from beginning to the end. If you have a clear understanding, first, you'll be able to manage uncertainties, things that may happen that you don't even know. If you know the business very well, you'll be able to manage it. Secondly, if you know your business very, very well, you'll be able to identify what could stop you from achieving your goals, which are the risks. So we must, for me, as an SME teacher, we must get SMEs to think about their businesses in a more detailed framework so that they can manage the fallout better. That's the emphasis on business model when it comes to managing risks and also dealing with uncertainties. I hope that answers that question, Neka.
Okay, yes, I think you did justice to that. And the person that is asking, and any other person that is asking questions around business model, kindly register for the Certificate in Entrepreneurship Management, and you will know more about that and every other thing. And that's a flagship program by the Enterprise Development Center. So the other questions, Tubi, do you want to take that, or Kayode, or Boyga?
Hi, Nick. Sorry, I missed the question.
Okay, so there's a question about how SMEs can thrive. I missed it, based on macroeconomic indices. And then there's another question that was, it had a lot of things going on in there. But I think the major thing was credit risk vis-a-vis demand and supply of the person's product. So that's a Bayomi. It's not very clear. Maybe what will happen is that we'll mute him so he can ask the question. But there are other questions that have come up. But the main one then was really about the business model, how SMEs can thrive, which I think we've actually been discussing on, except you want to delve a bit more into that.
Okay, so for me, and thanks for that, Nick, I think in very simple terms, when we talk about the business model for any SME, I think I usually would use 3 words to sort of define it. It simply means, how do you create? How do you capture? And how do you deliver value? How do you create value? How do you capture value? And how do you deliver value? Now, in between, amongst those three dynamics, you'd find out that there are several different ways or different approaches, or to use the term strategies, different strategies that would answer those questions or give you the best route to the market. The business model basically just has at what the best route to the market is, taking into consideration your financial capability, taking into consideration the infrastructure that you have on ground, taking into consideration the access to raw materials or goods that would help you to deliver your finished product. So in a way, that's what the business model, is basically talking about. And what you find in most cases with very many businesses, especially the structured businesses, is the core of the business model may not change, but the approach to delivering value in most instances is what needs to be tested from time to time. And with COVID-19, this is a classic example. I can't remember the name of the store right now in the UK that doesn't have a single online presence. And they sell in millions of pounds every month. But in the month of April, they returned £0. It's what? Primark, yeah.
Yes, it's Primark.
They returned they returned zero, you know, and that's because the elements around the business model, the core of the business model is not expected to change, but the elements around delivering that value, you know, had not been entirely thought through. And we can argue and say, oh, is it the best model? Yes, today there is no denying the fact that your brick and mortar approach needs to be garnished with some access to digital or online service delivery as well. And it's how well those two shake hands. So how well you experience on the brick and mortar part is also how well the experience you want to hopefully deliver on the online section of your business to ensure that you're actually capturing and delivering the right value and experience across both. So really when we talk about business models, it's just basically saying, how do you create that value? How do you capture the value and how do you deliver the value?
Okay. So there's some hands up. Uche has his hand up as well as Bashir. Okay. So can the admin please unmute Uche so Uche can ask his question? Please, questions that are straight to the point, and then if it's for a particular panelist, you can actually call their name and address it to them. Okay. Thank you, Uche, for
Uche, please go ahead. Your mic is on mute.
No, you can speak, Uche. We can hear
Uche,
you.
please go ahead.
Okay, so Uche's mic is still muted. Do you want to unmute Bashir so Bashir can ask his question?
Okay, doing that now. Go ahead, Bashir.
Thank you.
Bashir, we've unmuted you.
Yes, thank you very much.
So you can ask your question.
Yes, I'm good. Good morning. Thank you for moderators and the panelists. Well, I want to just ask these questions, and I focus on Helen and Adekoyega precisely. I want to ask them, is there any way we can preach more of remodeling of the BMC, that's business model canvas? From what they are talking now, I think COVID-19 has come up to let us realize that risk is very, very important to BMC. And in doing that, I look at it when they were answering, and I observed that every key element of business model have their own risk. For instance, if you look at key partner, if you look at the channel and the customer segment, which affect the entire revenue, can they preach if there's any way the entire business modeling can be remodeled and justify their key? Because every sector is having the problem of it. And that is what we've never experienced COVID-19 effect, but now it has come to stay. From their lecturing, from their teaching, is there any way they can incorporate risk from every element of it so that every business owner can really use it to address their business need, to address, because they're going to take it to their different industry to be able to do it and be able to justify it. If there is a way they can help us to justify key areas. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Bashir. Bashir, it's interesting that you asked that question, because the Enterprise Development Center actually has a session on business model, a training that we have in the coming weeks on business model canvas. And they also shared, if you're following us, you see the announcement when it comes up. But Helen and Boyega, he specifically asked both of you around the BMC. That question was directed at two of you.
Okay, Boyega. Okay, let me just say that that's a very valid point that he said. At the points at which the business model canvas was developed, I don't think that the originators gave much thought to having risk management as a core component. But as with most other things that COVID-19 has done, it will make experts review that canvas, and they may wish to put risk management as a core component because it's about how you make money and how you stay in business. Yes, so yeah, really something worth looking at. And I think I would look at that for myself as well. It's a valid contribution, very valid. Thank you.
Okay, Kayode, sorry, Boyega, the question was for both of you and Helen. Any thoughts on that? Boyega. Okay, it seems that we've lost Boyega, but there are quite a number of questions in the chat box. So I'll just start reading them out. Ice Twist Event is asking, what the insurance industry has. So now this question, and I've seen it, somebody else already sent one privately. What the insurance industry, what do we have to help during this period? So Heidi and Tubi, this is directly for you guys because you present one of the best insurance companies in Sub-Saharan Africa, Old Mutual. I'd like you to just address that. What do you have to cover the current situation? Then the next question is looking around grants and interventions that can be accessed beyond the CBS. So that's from Adibola Oyikola. And then Moses has a question around Forex. It's the same question that Ibrahim has, which is, you know, what do they do? And this really is for a lot of entrepreneurs who prior to now have been trading and importing their goods. Okay, so those are the questions that we have. So the first one I asked was around insurance. What can the insurance industry do in light of all we're talking about uncertainty, risks, and challenges? What are some of the things that the team at Old Mutual has to address some of these risks?
Okay, let me just attempt to respond to that. Helen had talked about an enterprise risk framework. An enterprise risk framework basically identifies your risk in line with your corporate or business objectives and goals. Identify, treat, control, and then monitor. Now, in treating the risk you've identified associated with your business, there are a number of options, which we could also describe as risk mitigants. Businesses can decide to take that risk if it's within the risk appetite of that business, or they can decide to transfer that risk. Now, in transferring that risk or sharing that risk, that's where insurance comes into place. Insurance then serves as a risk management tool, basically for the transfer of risks. Now, insurance solutions would apply to almost all businesses. There's obviously something that would require the attention or service of an insurer. So like we had already talked about, reviewing your business end to end, identifying, you know, what needs to be insured and all of that, but trying to link it to Ice King's question. And I mean, he partially responded, you know, partially provided an answer to his question, stating that diversification is critical in this, based on what his business is currently going through. They need to then look for other ways of getting their service across, their ability to innovate. I mean, there's this popular saying about the fact that the organization that fails to innovate, you know, is more or less going to die over time. But tying it to what he's concerned about, I mean, I think he mentioned he works in the event, entertainment or event industry, and he was asking, does the insurance industry have any specific solutions, you know, based on what his business is going through now? I can say that there is an insurance policy or cover called the business interruption policy that can be looked or reviewed to address some of these concerns that he's highlighted. Now, basically what the business interruption policy does is where uncertain or unplanned events or risks then come in to disrupt your normal day-to-day business activities, that policy then comes in, you know, to the response to ensure that that business continues until until it gets back to normal. So whatever it is that may have hampered its day-to-day runnings or day-to-day operations, the policy comes in to address that, pending when that is resolved or rectified. However, for the COVID-19 pandemic issue that we're currently experiencing, what also comes along with these policies is that the policy may not be able to respond to all situations. For instance, globally in the insurance industry, there's a debate that is ongoing now around the fact that the BI policy should be able to respond, as a result of this COVID-19 pandemic, whether it's an exclusion or not. But the point is, it's worth exploring. Whatever whatever operations that the SME businesses are running, call an insurer, you can reach out to us. We look at your process end to end, and then we would recommend what would help to alleviate or address the concerns like we have right now with the COVID-19 pandemic. But the policy that resonates clearly right now to me would be the business interruption policy. But ICE King can reach out to us afterwards, and then we'll take a holistic look to review it.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I couldn't hear you for a while.
Sorry, I didn't even know I was muted. The admin must have muted me. Sorry, I'm sorry. I was saying that that you've answered that, but there's the other questions. Somebody is asking about foreign exchange risk, that what do they do about that risk? So I was saying that even from the chat, Chinedu Ejiofor had answered and saying you can take out insurance and then you can also hedge. But if there's any other thing you'd like to add to that question around foreign exchange risk, please do so. Then the next question is from Nenna, who obviously is in Abuja because she's saying that she owns a school. In light of the directive by FCT, they mandated all schools to remain closed and also charge no fees for third term until they're told to resume. Okay, I didn't know that I had done that. How do they meet financial obligations to staff in terms of salaries? That's one. Then Gibson Anna has two questions. He says, due to the uncertainty of the present situation, is there any way we can still import dependable products? Okay, and the second one, how do we mitigate the present price fluctuation risk due to dollar fluctuations? Okay, so I'll stop there now. And you can, any one of you can take the questions.
Okay, I'd like to speak to the education question, the person in the education sector.
Okay.
Education is very important, especially for the children during the lockdown. What they need to do in Abuja is the educators need to come together as a group. I'm aware that there are associations of private school owners. They need to come together as a group and make a case to the government, especially one, from their going concern perspective, two, from the welfare of the teachers. I'd like to imagine that in a city like Abuja, there will be well over 5,000 teachers employed in private sectors, in private schools, if not more. So what I would advise her is they should get together as an association and make a case. And also studies have shown, and the Economist published a report, that if you don't keep the children engaged, they will lose track of their learning momentum. So it's very important for us to keep them in business. And hey, education is also a business. We are talking about preserving jobs. We are talking about growing the economy. So the education sector employs a lot of people. So they need to make a case as a pressure group to the governments on why they should continue to teach online. On online teaching, I think now is the time for school owners to also engage the government more strategically and look at how they can facilitate access to education for children who attend public schools. If the government sees that there's also some effort to help the public schools, they probably will be less hostile towards them opening and also collecting fees. But they must work as a pressure group. I'll speak to the education question only. Thank you, Neka.
Okay, all right. Thank you for taking that question. And the other one was around foreign exchange risk. And then the two questions, one around importing dependable products due to the certain situation. Is there any way we can still import? Gibson asked that question, and how to mitigate the present price fluctuation risk due to dollar fluctuation. So any one of you, Kayode, Boyega,
okay. Okay, so it's Kayode. So let me just attempt on the foreign exchange rate. I think to a great extent, like we said earlier on, this is not something you have entire control over as an SME, particularly for those who are probably importing and exporting as it were. There is the risk of currency translation, and also there is a risk of the transactions itself. I think in most instances, what people do is usually to take what I refer to as swaps or get some hedge over their money market foreign exchange to be able to ensure that in the event where there are significant fluctuations, they are covered. Insurance plays a very, very minimal role, but it's usually mostly around the hedges that you have put in place. So I'll be more particular to look at somebody who, so I was in a discussion with someone yesterday, one of our SMEs, and one of the things that he said was the company is based in Brussels, and prior to now, they used to do business based on Euro. And now they have had to change that to Naira, just because they feel that, it's probably a lot more profitable for them rather than benchmarking into the Euro and vice versa. So they've created that leeway to be able to absorb challenges that they have. But there is no one-size-fits-all approach to it. That's why it's usually viewed on a case-by-case basis. How will this work for this particular SME, this particular store, and what solutions do we have in place? And to a great extent, insurance as well plays. So, like my colleague had said earlier on, that's to be Old Mutual has been around for over 175 years. And one of the things that we try to do is to become your friend in uncertain times. Your friend doesn't mean we'll then dole out money, but it's basically saying, aside from taking insurance, we can also give quality advice on how best to hedge against some of the challenges that you may find with your businesses.
Okay, all right, thank you very much for that. There's another question, and this business model canvas that we are in, is it possible, can insurance companies see the BMC as tools for them to use, noting every key element of models carry their risk? So this question is directed to Old Mutual, actually. Do you guys use that? Is that something you can look at and then identify all those key risks?
Sorry, can you just take that question again? It wasn't too clear. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Nika, can you hear me?
Okay, sorry. So the question was, yeah, I can hear you. So the question was, the business model canvas, is it a tool that Old Mutual can use in assessing and checking small businesses when they engage in them? That's the BMC, the business model canvas.
Okay, I'll say that the BMC in itself is a tool that is very, very much important to the business as a whole. But when it comes to the issue of insurance, what you probably, so bottom line, what I'm trying to educate, so what are you trying to mitigate? What risk are you trying to transfer? The primary risk would usually be revenues. So when we look at your BMC, some of the things that we'll take into consideration will be your turnover, your revenue, your staff, to be able to, for example, predict what kind of cover we'll give to you based on business interruption or a key man risk if it's a business that does not have so many employees and it's just the sole ownership. But the canvas itself will not be diagnosed by the insurance company. It's the output of the canvas which is translated to your profitability, your revenues, that will be based on advising you on the appropriate cover. I'm not sure if that makes any sense.
Okay.
Hello. Does that make any sense?
I think it does. So I want to just go and check now.
Absolutely.
It makes a lot of sense. Make sure that there are no hands up. I can see Bashir's hand is still up. So I'm not sure, okay, Sheyi Ajibola. Can we unmute Sheyi Ajibola? He has a question.
Sheyi, please go on. You're muted already.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Sheyi.
I appreciate EDC for this platform. My question goes now, looking at the impact of this COVID-19 on we, the SMEs. I am SME. If I want to say SME, I will say micro. Looking at our turnover now, we've had issues with our staffs who actually were not paid for the last month. This is this April, because we did not make money. Now, how do we mitigate that loss and trying to keep our best hands facing this reality?
Okay, mitigate the loss.
The loss of revenue and keeping our best hands. Knowing fully well that, at least we should be able to pay them. Is there an insurance policy that can help? We're talking of planning for the future now. Is there an insurance policy that we can actually key into for the future, whereby if something similar like this come up, maybe 1 month or two, we'll be able to be rescued. So we will not lose business and we'll still lose our best hands. We now feel that does not even know my impact or anything. Is there a way we can manage the situation?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So let me just give you another question. Coyote, there's one that is similar for you and Tubi now. So Ice Twist event says, I suggest that the insurance industries should use this opportunity to cater to SMEs on this unique risk and improve the customer's perception of the industry. They don't seem to be offering us any solutions or any value. Okay, so this is a direct attack. And with that, once you finish answering, I think it might be good for you to just share a little bit of the huge portfolio, because I know that Old Mutual is big in the SME space. I'd like you to just share the full portfolio of what you have for MSME so we can change that perception.
And rightly so, Neka. Thanks for the opportunity once again. Let me start with Sheyi's question. I think Sheyi's question is thought-provoking because the risk that we are speaking about has already crystallized. And so what we're doing now is most importantly going to be a fire brigade approach, which would not be best suited at the moment via insurance. So let me give an example. I think I saw one or two comments that went along the lines earlier on as well. If we already face the possibility of losing our best hands, and because revenues are not coming in, the first question is there a way to probably reduce payouts? So what are we paying as salaries? Is there a way to adjust such? Is there a way to have people go on paid leave, or follows, as the case may be, or later on unpaid leave? Those are things that you can actually think about right now, simply because the risks have already crystallized. Usually, you take out insurance to ensure that in the event where a risk happens, you're covered. It is not when it happens that the insurance then needs to be taken out. So if you already had a business interruption policy in place, it should have taken into consideration certain areas that you have touched on to be able to make out a payout in the event that this risk actually happens. If you have a credit risk policy or credit policy in place, it will also take care of those credit challenges that may come up in the event where you fail, you default as a result of dwindling revenues and inability to sell goods and services. But all of those you put in place only at the point where you have looked at your business and you have said these are the potential risks, not saying that the risk has come now, what can I do with insurance? But having said that, I think it's also very instructive, the point that iSwiss event has raised, which is the issue around education, literacy about what, the kind of covers that we can actually offer to SMEs. I think in the space of SMEs, I stand very bold to say that Old Mutual is currently leading a campaign in the forefront of ensuring that not only do we protect people's lives and properties, but we need to help them understand the impact of certain insurance decisions that they need to make to keep their businesses. So very recently, we had focused on, so when you look at the incessant issues around fire, with shops being burnt down, with markets being burnt down, the question we're asking everybody is, for people who are shop owners, for people who are small business, and he said rightly, I think if it was Shay that says that this is a micro SME, so probably less than 10 people. But if you operate out of a shop, do you have a shop cover? In the event where fire comes, are the things that you actually stock, or are they covered? And these are very simple discussions. So business interruption is on the one hand, one solution, but that is just not all. Key man risk is another one that you want to look at from an insurance standpoint. Credits and defaults, job losses. There are insurance companies that actually provide an array of all of these covers, and Old Mutual, obviously is one of them. But at the end of the day, it's really not just saying what are those risks. What we want to do is to be able to first understand what is your business and what are the potential needs that would arise. So you'd find out that, yeah, if it's Shay's business where he's the sole owner and he's on that platform as an individual, then the success or continuity of that business is hugely dependent on Shay being available, and hence the key man risk is something that you cannot even dilly-dally with. But having said that, everything that has happened in the last couple of months have taken each and every one of us by surprise. But there are lessons to be learned from them. And the lessons are, there are insurance policies that you can actually put in place. And I know that we're working with EDC to be able to spread this news further, to be able to ensure that people understand and are better equipped to make certain financial decisions that sustain the business in the short term to the medium term, and ultimately help them sustain their business model over the longer term as well.
Okay, all right.
I'd just like to add, I'd just like to add to what Kayode has said. I mean, he's basically responded to it. It starts first with understanding that SME's business operations, and that's one of the core things we tend to offer at Old Mutual. It's not just about selling policies, but we tend to offer advisory. Advisory first, having gained a full understanding of that SME. SMEs offer different services, offer different products. Where we're able to understand, the operations, the operating model of that SME, we're then able to provide the right insurance to that SME. Like you said, only a couple of months ago, having engaged and gotten feedback from the SME industry, we identified the gap and the need, to create that exclusive shop protect product, that would secure SMEs in the event of fires, burglary and the likes. I mean, now that everything is grounded, we've heard of incidences where stores are being vandalized. So it's bad enough that you're not even able to go out to sell as a business owner. And then at the end of all of this, you find out that, oh, your store was even vandalized, during this crisis. And those are some of the things that we're focused on at Old Mutual to ensure that we're able to plug those holes and plug those gaps. Finally, like you said, it's caught everyone, it's caught the whole world by surprise, if you'd agree with me. But the learnings from here is what we're also taking back to develop and craft better solutions that would mitigate this risk when they do happen in the near future.
Okay. All right. I have two more questions for both of you, Kayode and Toby, on the hot seat. And I hope your AC is on where you guys are. All these questions being thrown at you. Okay, so Olatunji Ogunto is asking, what is Old Mutual plan on insurance for new vehicles for those of them in the haulage business, especially as the trucks have been on lockdown in some states due to the impact of COVID? Will you refund us some of this insurance? Tunji, I hope I'm asking it well. You want to know, you pay so much money for your trucks. It hasn't done anything. The same way that everywhere they're telling landlords, don't take rent. Tunji wants to know, Old Mutual, just let me know, are you deducting these 3-4 months that we've been on lockdown? That's the first question. The second question for you guys as well, to be, speaking of insurance, so this is from Nena, who owns the school in Abuja. How can Old Mutual provide insurance to parents to avoid disruptions to their children's education due to inability to pay fees as a result of unemployment, sickness, and even death? Okay, so over to you guys.
Interesting question. So I will start off with the second question, and I would allow my senior colleague to be answer the very first question. Okay, so I think those are very, I think, clear examples of the present situation we found ourselves in. And oftentimes, I always try to help people understand that when you look at the picture of an SME, it is not something that is floating in the air. The SME starts with an individual who has needs, who has desires, who has to plan for today, who has to plan for children, who has to plan for, probably even getting a property, or, several needs that come up at the same time. And it is only when they have, more or less ticked that box that you can actually see their businesses thrive. So the question from I'm not sure who the lady is, the school in Abuja. Oh, great, from Nena, I think I was right. So on the life side of the Old Mutual business, we have what we call the Old Mutual Patient Protection Plan. It's pretty much a plan that actually speaks to a lot of what you have said. So in the event where primarily an individual dies, you don't want the child's education to be stopped for any reason. In fact, we're actually partnering with schools, because what we found out is that most parents prefer, based on experience, to put their children in a certain school. And as a result of that, they want them to continue to derive certain educational levels or quality of education that is in line with what their aspirations are. So what we try to do is to work with schools to be able to put a plan in place that they can offer to the parents. This policy can be bought through, some minimal charge, very, very minimal charge. I think one of the things we haven't also talked about on this call is the fact that insurance is actually not expensive when you compare it to what the risk that you potentially face. So we have a plan that allows you to be able to cover a child's education or children's education up to certain limits, and you are able to then determine how you want to fund that. But we often prefer to actually go through the school platform to be able to do it more as a group, so everybody buys into that ideal, and you can actually have success stories coming out of there. So the other part of the question, because it's two-pronged, is the fact that yes, government has said schools have to remain closed. We can't charge any fees right now. These are part of the circumstances that nobody planned for. These are the challenges that today the school now needs to start to, so going back to diversification to say, what else could we have been doing, or what else could we do? Because right now this risk has crystallized and none of us were prepared or was prepared for it. So whilst you can, before thinking and say going forward, these are the things that I want to do, and this is the role that insurance can play. For the risks that I've already crystallized,
there was a fundamental error.
There's just so much that you can do at this point in time. But we would actually like to engage with Elena a bit more to see how we can help with some of our packages, especially focusing on people who are desirous of ensuring that children's education plans are actually fulfilled.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that. I think another thing over to 2B. What I'm just thinking now is that this forum and forums like this offer a lot of you corporates an opportunity for free R&D. Okay, so 2B, over to you. The questions was around truck. They've paid for the trucks already. They've done the insurance. We're on lockdown. The trucks are not being used, but the insurance is ticking because it's every year. Will you refund us some of that money? That's a simple question. I'm sure that question Tunji is asking is a question a lot of people have on their mind, even for our cars that we're not driving anywhere. We haven't driven them in 2-3 months. Can you add that back? That's the question. Is to be there? Is to be there?
It seems that we've lost him. Okay.
Okay. So you want to take
so
that?
let me just help. So it's a very interesting question. We have been getting people also asking the same questions as well. I think that for the benefit of those who are listening is the fact that the risk that comes with vehicles are usually priced in a certain way to ensure that we're actually able to cover, just barely cover what is required to ensure that nobody is put in jeopardy or in loss. Whilst we understand that, yes, there are palliatives in certain terms that people have looked at to be able to respond to this. And you see a lot of that even on the life side of the insurance business, where people are looking at it in events where you're diagnosed, there is a cover to just alleviate or mitigate the expenses that may be incurred. From a haulage business standpoint, or from a motor insurance business standpoint, these are areas that we're also looking at to say, how can Old Mutual actually come about to be a certain friend in these uncertain times? And whilst there's no hard, fast rule about saying, oh, we will refund or will not refund, I think the real commitment we're trying to put out there is to say, whatever we're able to do to alleviate that pain, we would, in our capacity, endeavor to do. Right now, we may not have the answers adequately because these are priced risks that have actually been created in that way. And we, as much as possible, cut to the skin to ensure that we provide service to people. But obviously, there are areas that we can cut back and provide something as a palliative. Definitely is what exploring. Yeah.
I think it's something that you need to think about. Old Mutual is forward-thinking, cutting edge, and a very vibrant company that has the interest of entrepreneurs. We know that. So it's something I think if nobody's doing that, we would not be surprised if Old Mutual did that. I know that in light of everything that's been happening with COVID, there have been so many issues that have come up, and what EDC has done, the Enterprise Development Center of Atlantic University, is provide a series of webinars that would help entrepreneurs plan, help them strategize, help them even think deeper about. So this is one of them. There's a poll that we do during every webinar, and that gives us an idea of what else you would like to see come from the EDC stable by way of online sessions. So my colleague, Wemi, is going to just put up a poll. We still have more questions, so do not go. And then there's still tips that are coming from the panelists. So the poll doesn't take more than 2 minutes. Wemi, please, can you launch the poll so that we can now take the rest of the questions, because there are still questions coming in from agribusiness, from construction. But guys, I just need you to take, it's going to come up.
Yes, I'm doing that.
The poll will come up on your screen. I see Zoom is logging a number of us in and out. We currently have 155 people. Would really appreciate if you just take time to fill this poll. Have you launched?
Yes, I've launched it.
Okay, so you see poll showing All right. It shouldn't take more than 2 minutes at the most. Okay, so Nelson, once we finish the poll, please help us fill the poll. We'll unmute you so you can ask your question. Okay, it's just 4 simple questions, just to give us an idea of, how we can serve you better, what else we can bring. Sessions like this are excellent. I'm sure the Old Mutual R&D team, their learning and development and research team, are currently thinking what else they can do to serve us better. So please, as many of you as possible, we have only 56% that have filled. Please just take it's less than a minute, only 4 questions to fill the poll, so that Nelson we can unmute Nelson and we can take more questions. Okay. You should see it on your screen, the box, just 4 questions. We have an amazing group of people. You're doing so well. The kind of questions that you've asked is making every one of us think how we can serve you better. Okay. Thank you very much for taking time to fill this poll. We really appreciate it. Okay, are we still filling? Just a few more people. Saeed has a question. Saeed, we're going to take your question as soon as we take down this poll. Saeed, I hope you filled your poll. And Nelson, that has his hand up. I hope you guys have filled your poll. You can't see the poll, Christopher. It's on your screen. It's showing. It pops up. You see polls. And then it's a box with the top saying risk management feedback in progress, green. Have you seen it now? Okay. So how are we doing with the polls, Wemi? Wemi, how are we doing with the post?
Only 50% filled. I put it in the chat.
No, it's not. It's more than that. Not what I saw. It was showing. It showed me 71 before. Only 50. Guys,
80% have completed. 80%.
Yeah, 80%. Okay. All right. So while we're doing that, Nelson had his hand up. Nelson, before we get to you, let's just take questions. Carry on. We hope we are drinking water while they're taking the poll, because all these questions are for you.
Yes,
Where's Tubi? Tubi, you ran away. You answer these questions. So the questions are for you. Left Carry on the hot seat. Tubi, are you back? Is Tubi back? It looks like the
So he's going to join shortly. I think he's having connectivity issues as well, but he will be back.
Okay. A glass of orange juice. A glass of fresh orange juice.
Yeah, fresh orange juice.
No, after lockdown.
After lockdown, I'm coming for that, definitely.
A glass of fresh orange juice from So Fresh or Fresh County. Those are 2 alums that that have fresh juice outlets. Okay,
Absolutely.
so I think we can start taking the questions. So now, again, Kayode, I'm sorry, back to you. Can you underwrite indemnity insurance for a private security company? Okay, that's the question. Helen, Helen, are you back on? And Boyega. Helen and Boyega. Okay, Helen. Okay, sorry, I think maybe the screen was black. No, you're a consultant. I'm sure you have 5 internet waiting just in case as backup to continue the conversation. So this question, I would want yourself or Boyega to answer. It says, much has been said, and this is from Ibrahim, about providing value on digital platforms. However, there are some businesses that cannot operate without physical contact. The construction services, what advice can you give them from this perspective? Okay, and then there's another question, maybe Boyega can take that. Though Helen, it might be you because I know you're in agribusiness. And Anu, I'll just say Anu. Anu is saying, I'm into livestock, so I don't brutalize Anu's name. I'm into livestock farming. Please, can you advise on how to go about taking an insurance plan? Okay, that's back for the old mutual, yes, for her business or his business. Then Saeed says, is there any policy for property owner when their tenants are unable to pay rent or vacate a house? So we'll take those 3. Is Boyega on? So either you take Boyega takes construction, you take livestock farming.
That's okay.
Okay. Okay, so Old Mitchell, do you want to go first?
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So I'll just give very quick answers to the 3 questions that have been raised. So for professional indemnity for businesses, yes, we do offer. It will be good to possibly, and I see a few people have put their email addresses on the chat group and what they would like to see or know more about. It will be good to also start up that. But yes, we can offer professional indemnity for specific businesses. In terms of insurance plan for businesses, yes, we have mentioned business interruption as one of those plans. There are several others as well. We'd love to sit with you to be able to understand what the needs are and provide the insurance options that are available at our disposal. Said's question around property ownership, and that's a very interesting question. Yes, we do have property and householder insurance, but this insurance covers do not cover the failure of your tenant to pay the rent or when your home is vacant. What it basically covers, so we have 2 variants. We have the homeowner's insurance or the householder insurance. So for the homeowner's insurance, it's usually the entire building. Everything that you have as a building, what its worth is, and when we give you the rates in that regard. And it covers against fire and all of those different hazards. For householders, this is for people who own their houses or people who are renting, the houses as well. So it only covers the content of the building. So what you typically would do is to list the content of everything that you have in your house that you'd love to insure, and then a rate to be applied to it again, and then to determine how much premium that you pay. And this would also cover against burglary, fire, and all of the different hazards that we have. In a simple sense, yes to all the different answers except for vacation of property, to questions except for vacation of property and the tenant.
Okay.
Okay, Kyle, let me just add to that response. Sorry, I've been having a lot of technology issues here. It's raining on my end. So the response to the property question that was thrown. So where a rental loss or loss of rental income can come into place is not with risk like COVID-19. So where that can be purchased or triggered is if there is a fire, for instance, and the property gets damaged, then the property owner can actually have an extension to his policy that will provide for loss of rental income for the period that the house, would then be reinstated or restored. But it's not applicable in this COVID-19 situation at the moment. Rental income, lots of rental income won't apply in this case.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So the other question, but after these two for Wega and Helen, I'd like Nelson and Gali, and I think there are 3 hands are raised for the admin, the host to unmute them so they can ask their questions. Okay, so the question, let me just say it again. The person is into livestock farming. Can you advise on how to go about taking insurance? I think you've answered that actually.
The person that is into construction.
Yeah, construction. It was construction. So the person says so many things. We've been talking about digital. Everybody's going online, but you know, what can they do? Because they cannot go online. They're developing properties.
Okay, I'd like to speak to that because the reality is, one, some businesses will have to be shut until the COVID scare, the pandemic is under full control. That's number one. Number two, again, people in construction may also need to negotiate their reopening so that instead of having 100 people on site, you can have 20 people working a day, so that you can manage the number of contacts and the number of people on the sites. The COVID crisis, the pandemic, it has brought to fore the need for us to critically think about our businesses so that we can come up with creative solutions. It is really, if you ask me, it's difficult for a lot of SMEs or business owners to shut down completely during this period. But as the government begins to relax the lockdown conditions, it's important for us as business owners to see how we can also phase our operations without jeopardizing the greatest risk of all, which is the health of our workers, and also some of the security risks that will come up as a result of the lockdown. Because if you leave a site unmanned, people can start stealing your things. So how can you ensure that you have a presence on site? I think that most of us who are in physical contact businesses, if it is a business that you can phase the reopening, then you have to do that. Like construction, I want to believe that it's possible to phase reopening of construction sites by minimizing the number of men on site. For some other businesses, you really may not be able to open it. So you have to pivot. You have to think of something else that you can do. And like someone mentioned earlier, for some of these businesses, it will take time. So you have to think and plan. The resources I have, what can I do with them? Or the skills that I have, what can I do with them? Can I collaborate with somebody else? Can you take that skill or knowledge somewhere else? Can you teach your skill or your trade online? Can you collaborate with somebody to support them in their own business using the skills you have? Most event managers are very good project managers. So can you look for people that you can collaborate with so that you can offer project management services to them? So it's really time for us to think a lot and think of how we can move to another space that is open with our skills and our resources. Thank you, Neka.
All right, thank you very much. So I'll go to those that actually want to ask their question. Nelson's hand was the very first hand just before the poll. Can the host unmute Nelson so Nelson can ask his question? Nelson, because of time, straight to the point questions. No comments or commentary. I think Nelson had his hand and then Bashir's hand is up. I'm not sure that is from before. Okay, have you unmuted Nelson? Gali had his hand up, but I think Gali's hand is now down.
Yeah, I think his hand is now down. But Bashir, I'm trying to unmute you. Please go ahead if you still want to ask.
Bashir, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Bashir, I'm unmuting you. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Mute me. Okay, thank you very much. It's not really a question, just a little contribution to the last question. It's referred to the someone that has question about the third-term payment that they don't know how to deal with it. Just like other webinars I've attended, I think this is the time a business owner to be more innovative, and you can't have it all. Most of the school is expected to know that brick and mortar is going gradually. And the first step, I think the person that asked question to do is to first of all do an internal rearrangement with his staffs. You can go ahead with the cutoff of staff salary, but meanwhile, you can be able to deploy method with which they will be able to do that. I think one of the suggestions I would suggest to that person is to look at the staff, the infrastructure he has in play, and how to carry his spirit at the parent of the people in the school. So that will determine by the customer segment. I mean, the type of student and the type of area of education is performing. Anyway,
okay.
those are just my
right.
conclusion.
Thank you very much, Bashir. That's actually some of the tidbits and feedback that we've been given to a lot of entrepreneurs. For a lot of them, they have not actually even hit the ground running since January, before COVID came and threw this double whammy at them. So a lot of them are worried about how to pay salaries and things like that. And what we've been saying is that you must have a conversation with your staff. And they must know the truth. You cannot borrow money to pay salaries. It doesn't work anywhere. So it's not feasible. Based on how much you have left by way of reserves. So the advice is, if you have 2 months salary full, have a conversation with your team and say, look, you know what, we cannot continue, and it's either I pay all of you your first 2 months and subsequently we start to downsize, or we take a salary cut. And if we take a salary cut of maybe 30 or 40%, that means that 2 full months you have can stretch. So you can actually pay them April, May, June, July. And it's a conversation. You need to communicate. This time needs a lot of communication with everybody in your ecosystem. Okay, so thank you very much, Bashir, for that. So there's still other questions here. There's one around, is there any insurance plan for estate developers to mitigate loss of investment and the likelihood of property value crash? And I think Heidi had said it. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Old Mutual is a listening company. They're dynamic. They're always ready to treat one customer based on their unique and individual concerns. So like he had said earlier on, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, Coyote, once they send a mail, it's a case-by-case situation. But maybe you want to answer that. But that was what I got from your earlier comments.
Yeah, absolutely. And for a minute, I thought that you were actually my colleague.
I'm even afraid because they'll think that you're being in fact, I saw.
You just summed it up nicely. Yes, you're right.
Okay.
That is it. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. We need to be able to determine what the challenge or their particular problem is and how we can actually help to sort of bridge that gap.
Okay, all right. So Suraj is saying, as we're resuming business next week, what are risk management measures that as an SME, he or she needs to put in place? So it depends on your business, but I think, is Boyega here? Boyega, are you on now? So Boyega can take that question. Boyega, are you with us? Okay, Helen, do you want to take that question around things to put in place since business is resuming next week? And the other questions are back to Tudi and Coyote.
Okay, so from a risk management perspective, I think number one, the primary risk or the most important risk this time is the health. You have to be able to protect your staff and manage the risk of their contracting COVID-19. So have hand washing facilities in place, even from the external part of the factory or office, as the case may be. So ensure that they have protective gear, the face mask, gloves where necessary, ensure social distancing. So health, we must first manage that. And thank God there's a lot of information in that space. And then second are your operational risks. What are the things that you need to manage in your operations? And this will include your people risks. We just finished talking about fees and the ability to pay salaries. What are your financial risks? You need to know them. What are your people risks? Can you continue carrying everybody? What's going to happen to your people? Do you have an insurance policy in place? Okay, what are the security risks? Because now there are different things happening. on their way to work, what are the chances they will arrive without being harassed by any group? Are there risks? Are there measures in place to protect your business when you've closed and gone home? Because you're likely to be working shorter hours. How are you going to protect your assets? We talked about people breaking into shops and offices. So you need to be able to protect that as well. You know, you also have your financial risks. You have to break it down. There are so many risks. But if you break it down into bits and pieces of the business, your operations, marketing, your marketing risks, what are the chances that your customers will be there? How many people are you going to be able to serve? What about the risks of a recession? Are you prepared for it? So there's so many things we need to look at, but I think we should start from the most important, which is the health, and then take on each aspect of our business and sit down with our team, no matter how small it is, to look at them in detail so that you can have a proper plan for managing the risks. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Time is fast spent. I'd like to thank my panelists, Helen, Heidi, Tubi, and Boiga, and as well as all our viewers and listeners from all over that have tuned in. So based on all the things that we have said, I took the liberty in wrapping up using Old Mutual. Okay, Kayode had said I look like staff. Now that I'm going to do what I'm doing, he has confirmed that I should be on the payroll for the month of April. So I hope you're hearing. I must be on your for April. So I want to wrap it up using Old Mutual based on our learning so far. So the O for old is that we need to organize and scrutinize our cost structure. It's extremely important. You don't need it going up because you know that your revenues are not going, they're not going up. The L is for look. We need to look at various scenarios and plan for them, especially the financial one. We have to do a lot of scenario planning. Okay, the D for old is dimension. We need to dimension the different aspects of our business. We must know it in and out. Helen started her own remarks saying that as SMEs, this is the best time. If you didn't know your business, you must know your business. So that's old. Now, mutual. The aim there is to monitor government's responses, because based on some of the things that they will put out, it will affect us. You can't just say, oh, I'm just looking, how am I going to make more money, blah, blah, blah. No, we must look at what the government responses are. The U is to understand the operations of our business very, very well. For a lot of us, we just set it up, we leave it to people to run, and there's a risk to that, as we've heard. The T is thinking thoroughly all the time. Your thinking cap, even when you are sleeping, it must be on. You cannot take that cap off at all. You must have your thinking cap on all the time. The U is to understand your business within the industry you serve, as well as the changing dynamics of that your industry, okay? The A is something very, very, very important. A lot of entrepreneurs, this has been worrying them. We need to assess our current staff strength, okay? Our staff model, we need to communicate with this staff. What exactly are you not telling them? You need to let them understand everything. When the lockdown is over and done, we've heard you must wear masks, we can't all be in the office at the same time, things like that. So you must look at your staff structure and communicate with them. And lastly, the L. The L means that you need to link up. You need to link up with your lenders. You need to link up with your landlords. You need to link up with your creditors. You need to link up with your key customers while managing the new ones. It's extremely important. And if we can do some of these things, which I've acronymed Old Mutual, we'll be a little bit more relaxed and less uncertain and less afraid with everything that is happening around us. And with that, I want to say a big thank you to everybody. We have a standard tradition and we take pictures, okay? So I don't know whether the host is ready. For the women amongst us, put your wig on. For the guys, you guys already, I can see Emmanuel's lovely smile. Emmanuel Benson, your smile is off the hook. Gibson that asked those questions, wonderful questions. I'd like to see Gibson's face. Obina's face, Ike Naubosi, Grace, Kate, Doris. I'm saying, bow down from Abuja. I can see my naval commandant.
Okay, are we ready?
Are we ready? We need a big smile.
Big smile,
Big,
please.
big smile.
Say cheese.
Cheese.
Yes, the pictures are being taken at the moment. Just hold on.
Okay, just hold on. Keep that smile a little bit.
Keep that smile on. Keep that smile on. Thank you. Smile like you enjoyed the session.
When you say it's like they did enjoy you.
Yeah, they did, I'm sure. So show me the smile, please. Thank you very much.
Oh, look at Saeed's beautiful daughter.
We're taking virtual selfies here.
Virtual group. Can I remove my own smile and talk?
Yes, please. Okay, I'm on the third page now. So.
We've recorded the session, so for everybody that registered, all 1,000 that registered, you will get a link to the recording so that you can play back. And I know in the chat box, Tubi and Kayode had put out vital emails so that all the questions that we have, there's still questions coming in, Kayode and Tubi. So the questions around indemnity and things like that. So I do hope that we all found the session useful, and I wish you a productive day ahead. Stay safe.
Thank you very much. Pictures are done taking.
Bye. You're done with the pictures, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, bye. Thank you for tuning in.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining.